So, welcome back. We have been talking about representation and we have been trying to grapple with this problem that while the universe is made up of fundamental particles, whether we are talking about galaxies or whether we are talking about forests or whether we are talking about human beings or whether we are talking about bacteria or viruses, they all occur at different levels of scale, but fundamentally they are made up of some fundamental particles, and obviously we do not want to represent them at that level of detail, let us say. So, we want to represent things at some level which is comprehensible to us and meaningful to us. And then we also saw that if we talk about complex entities like human beings who have different parts. So, you have eyes and you have a nose and you have a mouth, you have two ears and you have two arms and two hands and this kind of stuff. How do we represent these kind of things? That these are things which are made up of parts essentially. So, there is this idea that we will have certain kinds of individuals and they would be made up of components or constituents or parts, as you want to say. So, it is the same idea that in the world everything is made up of some fundamental particles and everything is kind of put together to this thing. But we will see that we cannot get away from the fact that complex entities will have simpler parts to them and we will need to represent this part of relation at some level essentially. So, we will need to reason about aggregation of parts into wholes essentially. And coming back to this question that I raised last time, that is Socrates is an individual and is his hand a separate individual? We will see that when we talk about representation, we want to represent abstract entities. So, a specific individual is in some sense an abstract entity which is there in our minds, even though in reality it is made up of 10 raised to 27 different atoms and so on. But we would like to represent that person as a entity. It is an abstract entity. It is not an element of the physical domain that we are operating in, but it will be an element of the conceptual domain that we are operating in. And in this conceptual domain, we will have to allow entities to have parts and relations between them. So, that is what we mean by aggregation. The individuals in our cognitive models are not the individual elements in the domain, which are elementary particles. We have been saying that over and over again. Instead, we invent our own concepts in our heads. People, trees, dogs, nations, organizations, football teams, governments, rivers, parks, shopping malls, shops, cars, trains, bicycles, cake, bread, cities, galaxies, protein molecules. We invent these things in our mind. Of course, this invention is meaningful because for some reason those collection of atoms do tend to stick together, but we create them in the sense that we create them in the way we look at the world essentially. We also think of concepts like length and color essentially. Now, what is length? What is color? I mean, are these individuals in some domain? But we will see that it makes sense for us to think of these as abstract individuals. That we can say that the length of an object is something that is represented in the world, so that we can compare them. So, you can say that the mango tree is taller than the apple tree essentially. So, we can make such kind of comparison. So, it would make sense for us to create abstract individuals for things like length and color. If I say that the rose is red, what is this red essentially? So, we will think of it as an abstract individual and get away with that. So, when we say that the rose is red, then we mean that an individual rose is red. When we say that violets are blue, we mean categories, that this whole bunch of violets or all violets are blue. We also want to reason about time and events and actions. People doing things, events happening, time going by, change happening. That will be necessary for representation. And as I said, we also think of entities like air and water and sky, but it is not clear whether these are individuals. We can think of them as individuals in the domain or even categories in the domain. So, what does it say to mean to say that I have a glass of water in my hand? So, it is not like there is an object in my glass essentially, because if I take a few sips, I would still say I have a glass of water in my hand essentially. So, those are some of the difficult things that if you want to represent, we have to contend with. This aggregation can be seen as one form of hierarchy in structured knowledge. So, we will see that there are two kinds of hierarchies. One kind of hierarchy is the aggregation hierarchy, which in my slide is going from the bottom left to the top right. The other kind of hierarchy is an abstraction hierarchy, which in my slides is going from the bottom right to the top left. So, these are two different kinds of hierarchies. Aggregation hierarchies are hierarchies which tell you how different components come together to form a larger abstract entity. But of course, it is not abstract in the sense it has a physical manifestation essentially. So, for example, if you look at these elements in my domain, then they all come together to form a more complex entity in my domain. So, think of a car, for example. A car has a steering wheel, it has got wheels, it has a bonnet, it has got seats and all kinds of stuff. So, things can come together to form larger entities. Those things themselves would have been formed by something even smaller. But of course, we have as reasoners, we have to choose as to what level we start with and what is the level where we represent things. So, we can't go down all the way back to the fundamental particles. We do not have the computational capability to do that. So, we will have to cut off things at some level and say we can't break down things any further than that and this thing. So, this is an aggregated entity. It can again come together with other aggregated entities to form maybe some other particle essentially, some other entity essentially. So, this is the aggregation hierarchy in which things are made up of parts essentially. The other hierarchy, which is kind of orthogonal to this, is the abstraction hierarchy. So, in the abstraction hierarchy, we say that all these elements, they belong to a same category. So, for example, all these are cats or all these are trees or whatever the case may be, they are all in the category, and that category we may want to represent as an individual at some abstract level essentially. So, this is cats, and so this could be cats, for example, and this other one could be, let us say, dogs and other things, and then they are all kind of mammals. So, there is this abstraction hierarchy. The abstraction hierarchy is characterized by the statement is a. So, a cat is a mammal, a dog is a mammal, and so on and so forth. So, we can go. So, we have these things which we call as taxonomies. The aggregation hierarchy is characterized by is a part of, essentially. So, a steering wheel is a part of a car, a horn is a part of a car, a gearbox is a part of a car. So, this is the part of our aggregation hierarchy. So, the real world of course, has aggregation in it, and the rest of it is in some sense an imagined world, essentially. So, when we talk about cats as an abstract entity or a class or a category, what we are saying is that yes, it is something, it is a concept or a category to which all these individuals belong to. And it is not just all these individuals. So, we can say cats and dogs are mammals. So, concepts can belong to other concepts also, essentially. So, this is a hierarchy, is a kind of an imagined world for us. The real world is, if you want to call it, physical in nature, but it can be cyber. In the cyber world also, it can be something which we can call as real. So, here is an example from one of my favorite domains, which is a team of bridge players. And this particular set of 6 bridge players, they were kind of world champions for many years in the 1960s and around that time. So, Belladonna, Everly, Garozzo, Fouquet, Pabistici and Diallo, they were known as the blue team, essentially. They won many championships. So, if you know a little bit about bridge, which you should, you know that there are partnerships in bridge. So, there are 3 pairs in this team, in the blue team. So, Belladonna, Everly is one pair, Garozzo, Fouquet is another pair, and so on. And so, there is aggregation going on here from individuals to pairs, and from pairs to teams, essentially. But also there is abstraction going on, essentially. So, for example, all these are human bridge players, and human bridge players are sports people, and sports people are human. So, this is a relation carries forward there, essentially. And of course, you can have abstract entities which are like a bridge pair or a bridge team, of which for example, the blue team is an instance of the bridge team, essentially. So, knowledge representation is going to operate at this different levels of scale. It will need to operate, it will need to include aggregation hierarchies as well as abstraction hierarchies, essentially, if we are to do meaningful things with what we know. So, we will have to go beyond predicates. Remember that unary predicates, we will discuss this in more formally as we go along, but we said that things like mortal X are categories. We have to go beyond categories and concepts. A sentence in a logic is something which is true or false in principle, even though we may or may not know whether it is actually true or false. So, for example, roses are red, violets are blue. A blade of grass contains information of the entire world. A butterfly flapping its wings in Brazil can cause a storm in Texas. A tornado is the word that was used. And these are sentences. They can be, they are either true or they are false. You may or may not know that. I have given links to these 2 particular sentences because there are some interesting stories behind these things, and maybe you can go and have a look at those. But knowledge of the world goes beyond simple sentences, as we have been arguing. Complex organisms can be described only by collecting a large number of sentences and organizing them into meaningful structures, and that is what we have been calling as hierarchies, aggregation and abstraction hierarchies. There is, in particular, if you are going to, we said that intelligent agents are agents in a situation, that you can demonstrate your intelligence only when you are in a domain in a particular situation. And one of the ways that we do this kind of abductive reasoning is because we have situational knowledge, that what typically happens in a hospital, what happens in a railway station, what happens in a restaurant, and things like that. So, we need that kind of knowledge, and we will see a little bit later that this is kind of called situational knowledge. So, just look at this fact or observation that Anisa walked into the bookstore. So, we are going to be talking about inferences and reasoning, right. So, what can we infer from this? We know that she walked into the bookstore. What else can you infer from this? Now, obviously, you can make some deductions and you can make some abductions. So, as I said some time ago, in the real world, most of the time we are doing abductions. We are doing guesswork, that this is what must be happening, this is what has caused this to happen, and that kind of stuff. But deduction is still a very strong part of our repository, a skill repository. So, what can you infer when you know that Anisa walked into the bookstore? If you know about bookstores, then you know that she will probably browse through some books, or maybe she is looking for a specific book. Perhaps she will go to the counter. If she finds a book, she will go to the counter and pay for it, if that is the way the bookstore works. Or it is possible that she may emerge with a book in hand. So, that is our typical understanding of what people do when they go into bookstores. But if you knew that Anisa is the sister of the owner, then of course, you may draw different abductive inferences, that maybe she was just passing by and wanted to meet her sister. Maybe she is going to sit in for the owner for a while, and relieve the person and for a while. Maybe she is also looking for a specific book, because that is what a bookstore has. But you can make other wild speculation like abductions. Maybe she had a gun and she wants to rob the store essentially. This would be true, of course, if you lived in a country where it is common to carry guns. So, we are talking about aggregation, abstraction and structured knowledge essentially. How does one represent knowledge about bookstores or about restaurants or about dental clinics and things like that? We have already hinted that this will be done by putting together different kinds of sentences which will describe those entities. In some sense, we collect and organize individual bits of facts about the typical knowledge about these entities essentially. These will be aggregated representations. Roger Schank, who was at Yale University, who did a lot of work in this area, he called such structures as scripts. So, it is a bit like a movie script, it is decided, especially if you are familiar with Bollywood, then this is the hero, this is the heroine, this is the villain, and it is a very well beaten script. Marvin Minsky, who was at MIT, also explored this idea of structured knowledge together, and he called them frames essentially. We will look at frames and scripts, though not in too much detail, but we will look at them. And this idea of frames eventually gave rise to this idea of object oriented programming system. So, if you have done object oriented programming, you would know that you talk about classes, and they can then of course, you for example, you can talk about a car, and then the representations mirror the structure from the real world, and you can see that that comes from this idea of frames. So, there is a story about blindfolded men trying to touch an elephant and figure out what it is. Somebody is touching the tail, somebody is touching the trunk, somebody is touching the tusk, and so on and so forth. But if they have to make sense of that, if they have to come to the conclusion of the fact that they are touching an elephant, if they want to even come to a guess that it is an elephant, to be able to make that guess, and this is true of abductive reasoning. You should know about restaurants or bookstores. If you want to be able to make guesses of what's happening, you should know what they are. So, you should know that an elephant is a composite entity. It's made up of these parts, and then you can say guess, okay, maybe I am touching something, it looks like a tusk of an elephant. So, some things may give you better clues, some things may give you weaker clues, but without knowing what an elephant is, you can never guess what it is. So, I mentioned taxonomies on the way. So, let us quickly discuss that also. That you do not want to represent a large collection of sentences, a large pool of sentences. Sometimes this is called as a flat structure, that it is just like you have all the sentences put together in some container. An algorithm for making inferences would have to search through the sentences to make the right connections, because remember that inference is going to be connections between sentences. This would come at a cost of computational complexity. Instead, we tend to organize facts into taxonomies. We have already mentioned this in the passing. Taxonomies facilitate inheritance. For example, we can state that mammals have 2 eyes, and this would imply that cats have 2 eyes, because we would have represented the fact that cats are mammals. So, they will facilitate this property of inheriting properties from superclasses to subclasses. A corollary of that is that it will facilitate compactness. We need to only store the property in the superclass. We only need to store that mammals have 2 eyes, and we do not have to store it explicitly for cats and dogs and cheetahs and elephants and so on. We can inherit that from that. So, that will lead to compactness of representation. And that is also the ideas that came forward in Minsky's frames, that you can represent things at a higher level and inherit them at a lower level. So, inheritance comes with this kind of compactness. Okay, so, we will come back and do a very quick tour of the kind of logic languages that we are going to study, and what are the topics that we will cover in this course.